For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. President Joe Biden is calling on Congress to establish term limits and an ethics code for Supreme Court justices. He's also pressing lawmakers to ratify a constitutional amendment that would limit presidential immunity. Biden's expected to make remarks about it today at the LBJ Presidential Library in Austin, Texas, to mark the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act enacted under then-President Lyndon B. Johnson. Biden's call for reforms comes as the Supreme Court, which has a 6-3 conservative majority, has issued opinions overturning landmark decisions on abortion rights and federal regulatory powers that stood for decades. Biden said in the op-ed in the Washington Post he supports a system in which the president would appoint a justice every 2 years to spend 18 years in active service on the Supreme Court. He noted U.S. presidents have had term limits for 75 years, and it should be expanded to the high court justices. It likely has little chance of passage in a closely divided Congress with just 99 days to go before the election. Catherine Carley has more.
Democratic Congressman Joe Morelli has already introduced amendment language to reverse a recent court ruling giving presidents criminal immunity for official acts, which has more than 40 co-sponsors.
This isn't just about Donald Trump and the charges he faces. This is about the office of the presidency. This is about what Americans believe, and they believe every person should be held accountable.
If it passes Congress, 38 states would need to ratify it. I'm Catherine Carley for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
Kamala Harris's campaign says it's raised $200 million in its first week of becoming the presumptive Democratic presidential candidate. She held her first fundraiser Saturday in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. A nonpartisan voter registration advocacy group, Vote.org, says it's seen a surge in registered voters since Biden dropped out and Harris became the Democratic presidential candidate. It's registered 100,000 voters on its platform, 84% of them under the age of 5. It says 18% are 18-year-olds. The top states include swing states of Georgia and Pennsylvania, also Texas, Ohio, Florida, Illinois, and California. Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance held their first campaign stop together in Minnesota over the weekend, where Trump continued a pattern of escalating attacks against Harris on crime and immigration. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro is claiming victory in Sunday's election, but the opposition is rejecting them as fraudulent. FSN's Nina Maria Potts reports.
With 80% of ballots counted, President Maduro allegedly had 51% of the vote, as opposed to 44% for his main rival. The Venezuelan opposition immediately rejected these results as fraudulent and is vowing to challenge them. The opposition claims it had won 70% of the vote and insisted its candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, should win the presidency. Opinion polls ahead of the election suggested that Mr. Gonzalez was way ahead of Nicolas Maduro. There's been skepticism from U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and others around the world over the results. I'm Nina Maria Potts reporting.
Here's U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken speaking from Japan.
We have serious concerns that the result announced does not reflect the will or the votes of the Venezuelan people. It's critical that every vote be counted fairly and transparently, that election officials immediately share information with the opposition and independent observers without delay, and that the electoral authorities publish the detailed tabulation of votes.
Blinken is on an Asia-South Pacific tour to visit with allies. He also met with his Chinese counterpart at the ASEAN Security Forum in Laos over the weekend. Tensions in the Mideast are escalating after a Syrian Druze community was struck by a missile, killing 12 children in the Arab community. It's controlled by Israel in the Golan Heights. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the site of the strike today. Israel blames Lebanon. Lebanon is rejecting the accusations. In the Gaza Strip, video surfaced of Israeli forces blowing up Rafah's water infrastructure. The Times of Israel reports the military is investigating the incident. This comes days after Oxfam released a report finding Israel's using water as a weapon of war, reducing water access into Gaza by 94% since Hamas's October 7th attack in Israel. Rami Al-Megari reports on Gaza's water shortage crisis.
The Deir el-Balah municipality warns there is a water shortage crisis due to the unavailability of diesel to run wells and water pumping stations. The majority, 19 out of 25 water wells, are now out of service, leaving 700,000 residents, including 600,000 displaced Palestinians who now live there, struggling to stay hydrated. Mariam Dawes is an elderly mother and currently hosts displaced family members in her Deir al-Balah home.
الحمام سيبك منه 10 أيام. لما واحد ما يتحمم ولا ما لقينا مية بالجراد بنلعب بالبراميل.
The bathroom use is something unreachable these days. When we want to bathe, we do it every 10 days.
Deir al-Balah is one of many communities across the Gaza Strip facing water shortages as Israel's military has blocked the borders in and out of Gaza, allowing only limited quantities of fuel to enter. For Pacifica Radio, I am Rami Al-Mighari in Gaza.
More than 100 blazes are scorching the U.S., mostly in the west, leaving a trail of damage. Here in California, the Park Fire near Chico is now the state's largest, spanning across 4 counties, scorching more than 350,000 acres, an area greater than the city of Los Angeles, and darkening the sky with smoke. Iowa's fetal heartbeat law went into effect today, banning most abortions at about 6 weeks of pregnancy and before many women know they're even pregnant. It's one of 4 states with a fetal heartbeat abortion ban. There are exceptions: reported rape or incest, if the fetus is unviable or the pregnancy is endangering the life of the pregnant woman. 14 other states have near total abortion bans at all stages of pregnancy. Iowa's Republican leaders moved to pass the ban after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. Providers have shored up access in neighboring states. Minnesota providers are preparing for an influx of patients. Last-minute court filings to challenge Iowa's ban last week said 200 abortions were scheduled. The vast majority passed the 6-week mark. I'm Christina Onnested, reporting for Pacifica Radio.